So, welcome back to the class. This time I'll start by explaining about subdivision level. Let me give you example with this demo anime head. But first, we need to clone this model first. We can clone using this clone button here. It's located under the tool palette. When we press clone, there's a copy of the current model here. So clone is creating a copy of the current selected subtools. In this case, this current subtool is this head model here. So by pressing the clone, we will create an exact copy of this model over here. So I usually do this to create a backup for my model. So I need to clone this model to give you a better comparison. As you can see in this model, if I try to add some details here, I'm using standard brush with stroke dots and alpha. For alpha, I pick this noise alpha here. So if I add noise here, you can see the dots is pretty low res. So how to increase this? All we need to do is, let me give you example in the another cloned model over here. So of course we can add more resolution on the Dynamesh. In case in this model here, if we open up geometry and a Dynamesh here, we can increase the resolution. Let me undo it first and increase the resolution for time like this. And then if we create, yes, we can create like this, but the resolution of the mesh, the details is still not good. So what we're going to do now is we add subdivision. So subdivision, we can find it in here in the geometry sub palette, in the tool palette here. So with subdivision level, you can add more resolution for your model. So you can have more details on your model. We can do it by pressing this divide button here or using the shortcut Ctrl D. We can divide it until a couple times, maybe 4 like this. So right now this model have 4 subdivision level. So this is the level 4, this is level 3, level 2, and level 1. Level 1 is basically the same as before we add subdivision. So how many times you add subdivision is depend on how much detail you want to achieve. So as you can see here, the active point is currently 6.8 million. So if you see down here, this is total point. Total point is not just this subtool here, but let's say if you have another one, for example, like the clothing, the body, the accessories, and more. So that will count every single subtool here, the number of the total point, and it will be shown here. While the active point is the number of points that we have in our current active subtool here. The point is actually, if you zooming in pretty close, and then we see the wireframe here. As you can see, there's a point here, and point here. So it's the total of all those points on this subtool. So that's the active point. So of course, if we increase the number of the point or the polygon in this model, the software will be a bit heavier. So it means when you try to rotate the model, sometimes it will be a bit lag. So I don't recommend to add subdivision too many. Usually I add about 2 million to 8 million, something like that. So this total point number is also, if you save your model, it will take more disk space. So yeah, you need to keep that in mind. So for anime, especially anime figure, we usually don't need high resolution details since most of the anime model will be smooth surface. Okay, so why we need to always add subdivision level in the geometry here instead of working just using Dynamesh is by using subdivision we can more easily manipulate the model. I'll give you example. So this is the subdivision one. If we try to add the same brush as previously one, as you can see, the details looks more better compared to the Dynamesh one. As you can see, the Dynamesh one still have this box filling, and if you turn it back to the subdivision one, it will be smooth like this. So that's why we work with subdivision level. So that's the first thing. So the second thing is, if you want to change the shapes or the silhouette of your overall model, with subdivision you can just go back to the lowest subdivision level like this. And then you change your model. For example, here I'm using move brush here, and then I smooth some of these details here. As you can see now, the detail is gone. But if I go back to the highest subdivision level, subdivision 4, as you can see, I still got my details here. But if I just using this Dynamesh here, if I move my model, of course it still move, but if I smooth it, so I don't have any details left in this model, so I need to add another one. So it will take more time. So that's why we prefer to use this subdivision. So the third one, why we choose to use subdivision level, is using this, as I explained before, your file will be very easy to handle. It's not too heavy, especially when you're rotating the model. It won't be lagging at all. So ZBrush will reduce the subdivision level to the lower subdivision level. If you see here, if I rotate, it's probably not that visible, but actually if you zoom in here and then we rotate it like this, as you can see, ZBrush is returning this model to a lower subdivision level, so it will be easier for ZBrush to handle this model. So another reason is to avoid more error. Model with subdivision level has less chance to error or corrupt compared to model with Dynamesh and sculptures like this. So it is also better if we have good topology on your model if you want to work with your subdivision level. As I explained before, every model has things that called topology. You can see it by turning on this polyframe or shift F like this. So with a good topology, if you want to make smooth model, especially for anime space, since our model here is previously Dynamesh, so as you can see, the shapes of the polygon is about the same. So we have a triangle over here. So the problem with that, if we try to smooth it, we apply smooth here, especially the nose area here, so it won't be a complete smooth. As you can see this dots here. We call that artifact. So it is some kind of mistake. We need to try to remove it. So how to remove it? We need a better topology for the model. So how to create a better topology? We can achieve with a couple of ways. First, we manually retopology the model. And the second one, we can use ZBrush feature named Zremesher. Zremesher is located in the geometry subpalette here, down here. So you can see Zremesher here. So if we smooth our model when we have a good topology, so it will follow the arrangement of the polygon. I'll give you a few examples. I will load my files with the Zremesh model. So this is my model using Zremesh. If we turn on the polyframe, as you can see, the topology it's way better compared to the last one here. Since this one is previously Dynamesh, and then we add the subdivision level, and this one is Zremesh, and we add subdivision level, of course. So as you can see, since the model of the nose is still looks like a Dynamesh, but by using this topology, if we smooth it, now you can see the result. It will be smooth really good compared to the Dynamesh one. This. So now I'll explain you how to Zremesh this model. So the way how I create this Zremesh model is we need to go back to the previously Dynamesh model. Let's see here, we can undo and turn it back to the original state here. So now what we are going to do is divide it just a bit, just once maybe, and then we can press this freeze subdivision level. By pressing this button, your model will be turned to the lowest subdivision level. So make sure this one active here. So once it's active, now you can change the topology of your model. So you need to create a good topology with a poly count or this active point count as low as possible. So actually a good topology needs to be created manually, but using this Zremesher here, we can create a good topology really quick. It will automate the process, and that's create the pretty good topology to work with. Okay, so let's try. First, make sure your symmetry is active here. If it's not active, that your topology won't be in a symmetry, so we don't want that in our model. So we can just press this Zremesher here, and then we wait for the process over here. So once it's done, you can see now your topology is no longer a Dynamesh topology. So this is pretty good to work with, but we can lower this down a bit. You can lower that down by using this one, this target polygon count. Right now is currently 5. We can lower it down to probably 3, and let's try that one. And now it's lower down like this. We want to remove this triangle here, so let's try to reduce it at 2. We can press Zremesher again to get a better result. See, right now it's pretty clean now, but the problem will be this ear. Let's undo it before to the previously Dynamesh, and then we press Zremesher once more. Now we have this better topology, and once we're happy with it, we can turn off this freeze subdivision level. And then once you unpress it, now it's back to the previously subdivision level before we enter freeze mode. And you notice your model will be masked like this. So you need to unmask to see your model. As you can see, this resolution is pretty low res. So what I'm going to do is usually I undo and back to the free subdivision model, free subdivision level here. And then I try to add a little subdivision level, probably just 3 like this. And then once this model looks pretty smooth, I unpress the free subdivision level again. So now you can see the model is pretty high res compared to before. And now we currently have 200,000 of active point. We can add once more. Now it's 1 million. It's pretty good to work with. And now as you can see, if you want to smooth this surface here, now it will be smooth really good. So we will use this process to almost every model that you work with in ZBrush. And you need to notice, if we put this lowest subdivision level here, we actually see this model is pretty high res. It's not really high resolution, but you can keep this one to the lower subdivision level. So what I'm going to do now is reconstruct this subdivision level. You can press this one a couple of times, something like this, until this nodes appear here, enable to reconstruct subdivision level. So reconstruct subdivision level is reconstructing to our previously divided polygon. So now the polygon has lower subdivision level. So it's only work if your model is previously has subdivision level. So it will stop reconstruct when your model is already at the lowest subdivision level. So you can see here, now your model has 5 subdivision level, which is pretty good for this model here. So next, I'll explain about Polygroup and Crease. To explain about the Polygroup, I'll load this demo soldier model here. So once it's loaded, if you show the polyframe of the body part of the model, you can see the different color on each part. Let me put it in its solo mode so we can see it more clearly. As you can see, the head has a different color compared to the torso and the limbs. So this thing is called a polygroup. Polygroup is for us to easier to organize the model. We can select the mesh based on the color. For example, the arm here, we can isolate just this color here by pressing Ctrl and Shift. And then we click on this color here. And now we can focus on this left arm model here. So to unhide everything and back to the normal, we can Ctrl Shift and then click on the empty canvas. And now you can go back to your previously model. We can also invert the object or the mesh that we want to unhide. For example, if we Ctrl Shift and then click this arm here, and then keep holding Ctrl Shift and then we drag in the empty canvas here, we can hide the arm that we previously isolate, and now it will show the other part of the mesh. So after that, we actually can hide other part as well. For example, if we want to hide this arm also, we can just press Ctrl Shift and then we can click on that. So it's now hidden. To show only both of the arm, Ctrl Shift and then drag on the empty canvas here. We will use the polygroup a lot it really helps us to organize, to make us easily to focus on a certain part. To add polygroup, all you need to do is open up this tool palette here and then scroll down here in this polygroup sub palette here. When you have a normal model like this and then you press auto group, it will create the entire model as a single group. So if it's turned to be a single group like this, you can do selecting or isolating each part of the model. So we go back to the Ctrl Z. For example, if we want to create a group just in this hand part, so all we need to do is we masking this hand part first. We can masking by using the mask lasso brush. We open up the brush and then we press M. And then as you can see here, there's a mask lasso. We can choose that. And then the pop up here, just keep it until next restart. And then now you can start masking using a lasso brush. Like this. So all you need to do now is you can press this group mask polygon. As you can see now, the hand model is on a different polygroup. We can unmask. Let me repeat one more time. Once you mask this one, I'll give you another technique. Right now, I will mask using the topology brush. So all you need to do is go to press the move here or shortcut W. And now we enter the gizmo mode. And then you press Ctrl and then drag your model around this wrist area here. So now you can invert your mask. And then the other function you can use to mask this model is by pressing Ctrl W. It's a shortcut for grouping the mask area. So as you can see now, it's creating another polygroup here. And you can select the hand only. Now, if you want to have a different polygroup between these two, you can either just turn off the symmetry and then selecting the other part here and then press Ctrl W. But the easier way is we can press this auto group here. By pressing this auto group here, it will detect this is as a two object and then it will generate a different polygroup. As you can see here, this is a darker blue and this is the lighter blue. So now we can select just one part of the hand. Like this. Another function here that I usually use to do sculpting on my model is group by normal here. But this is just only work in a hard surface model. I will explain it in the next part when I explain about Zmodeler. This is generating the polygroup based on the angle of the surface. So that's all about the polygroup. And now we will move to the Zmodeler. So about the Zmodeler, it is another function to edit topology. The way how it works, it's called polymodeling, just similar as other 3D software like Blender, 3ds Max or Maya. So if you try another 3D software before, you will be familiar with this. So first, let me start with creating Q-cube first. So all you need to do is just selecting a random primitive object here. And then we make Polymesh 3D. And then we scroll down here under the tool palette. And then we open up this initialize. And then we press this Q-cube here. Once we select this, ZBrush will generate this cube here. So if you press space bar on top of the model here, so as you can see, there's a pop-up menu here. So this pop-up menu is actually different based on where your mouse is pointing. So for example here, now I'm pointing at the top of the polygon. When I press it there is the title here is Zmodeler, and then the next to it, it's called polygon action. Since my mouse is pointing on top of the polygon, if my mouse is on top of the edges here and then I press space, now it changed to edge action. Another one is in the top of the point here, and now it become point action. So you have three type of selection, which is point, edges, and poly. So let's start by hovering up your mouse in the polygon here. Let me turn on the symmetry first, and then we press space, and then this is polygon action. Action is a function. It's like extrude, move, insert, bridge, and many more. So the target is an element where the action will be applied. I'll give you example by pressing in the top of the polygon here, and then I pick Q mesh and then a single poly. So that's mean I applying this Q mesh in the single polygon. For example, if this polygon here and then I drag it, it will extrude another mesh here. So if you want to change your selection to all these four surface here or these four polygon here, all you need to do is change this a single poly to polygroup all. Since now the target is polygroup all, it will apply to all the same polygroup. For example, this is the yellow polygroup here, and in this other side here is also yellow. So if I apply the Q mesh here, so it will be applied to another side as well. Even when I turn off the symmetry, it will still apply that one since we pick the polygroup all as a target. So we actually can change the polygroup color. We can using the mask I explained before. We can mask like this, or we can just use the Q mesh here and then press Alt, and then now your polygroup is changed to white like this. So if you want to extrude just these three polygon here, you can do that. Since I don't apply mirror or symmetry here, so this other part here won't be affected by this polygrouping here. So the most used function, the action that I usually use is, for example, the edges here, I really use insert a lot. So you can insert another edges in this part here. So if you want to add more lines to create a better topology for your polygon, you can just use insert here, and then you can create a holes. For example, if I want to create holes in here, all I need to do is by this QMesh active here, and then I create a polygroup here by holding Alt and then selecting this four polygon here, and then all I need to do is dragging this QMesh back, and then now we have a holes. I'll try it once more like this, and now it has the holes like this. So another function, if we open up this geometry here, if we open up geometry here, and then we open up dynamic subdivision here, under here. So the shortcut is by pressing D, and then there is a pop-up here. Would you like to auto active dynamic? And then we press always yes. And now you can see this model is smooth. So this is called as dynamic subdivision level. With dynamic subdivision, you can see how your model when you apply subdivision. But you can still edit your model since the model is not actually has subdivision. So this is like fake subdivision. This is very useful, especially when we work on mechanical details. So for example here, as you can see, the shapes is pretty smooth. But if we want to increase the subdivision level to get a better smooth here, we can scroll down in the smooth subdivision level here. Now it's currently 2, and then we can improve it to 3. If we feel we need more smooth, then we can increase to 4 like this. So as you can see now, your model is smooth like this. So for example, if I want to create this part here is not smooth, then what I want to do is I need to add crease here. So the way how I add crease is I need to show the polyframe here, and then I select the edges and see the edge action here, and then I pick crease here. And now for the target, if I select the edge, if I click on this edge here, this is just applied to one edge here. But if I select edge loop partial, and then when I select this is applied to the all line until this line here. It stopped here since the line here is split into 2, like from here and here. So if we want to apply the crease to all this polygon here, all we need to do is pressing this edge loop complete. And now this is applied to that part here. Sometimes it happens. All you need to do is just undo and then try it once more on another edges. And now this edges here has a sharpness compared to the other one without the crease. So you can apply on these edges as well. Probably it will work better if we select the edge loop partial and we select one by one like this. So for example, if you want to create a perfect circle here, all you need to do first is turn off the perspective, and then you can select clip brush by pressing B, C, and then we find this clip circle here. We can select clip circle center like this, and then press skip, and then we press Ctrl Shift, and then we create this circle here and release. Ctrl Z, we select here, and then don't forget to press Alt, and now it's creating this circle here. And now your model has a perfect circle here. So for example, if you want to add another shapes, you can just keep doing the Q mesh. This Q mesh is actually have a multiple function, like I showed you before. The extrude, the extrude is same with this one, extrude here. So like this. So for example, if you want to add a bevel in this area here, all you need to do is just press bevel while hovering on the edges here. We select bevel here and then make sure edge loop complete as a target, and we need to drag. And if it's applied to another side, so we need to do selecting another polygon, another edges. Like this. And now if we open up the subdivision level, it removes some of the crease here. So that's when we need to add a crease. So all we need to do is scroll down in the geometry here and then open up crease. And then we select crease PG. It is creasing the polygroup. So as you can see, there's a lot of polygroup here. If we press the crease PG, it will adding crease around the polygroup. So if we press D, as you can see here, it will add a sharpness around every polygroup. So we don't want these shapes here. So all we need to do is we can select all this polygon here by using mask. The normal mask here, mask pen. And then we press Ctrl W. And now this is back to previously. This all become one polygroup. And then for this part here, we can also do that. We can mask this one here, then Ctrl W. And now if we crease polygroup here and we press D, it will back to the original state that we want. As you can see, now it has a bevel effect here, which is very good if we use it on the hard surface. So now let's try to create a curve around here. We need to do is just selecting this, masking this area here, and then we can drag out using this gizmo here. So you can see now it's creating this curve. Let me adjust it a little. So now this curve is following this circle inside here. So now I will explain about group by normal. You can open up this polygroup subpalette here, and then all we need to do is just pressing this group by normal. As you can see now, the polygroup is based on the angle. Right now the max angle tolerance is 45. As you can see, it's creating the grouping almost everything here except this one, since this one is, as you can see, it has no bevel here. So this one is more sharper. This is a 90-degree angle, so it's more than 45. So that's why it will creating this polygroup here. Same with this one inside on the circle here. This is probably more than 45 angle. So if we want to group all this cylinder part here, we can actually increase this maximum angle tolerance. For example, in 60, and then we press group by normal again, and now it will creating polygroup in the cylinder inside here. So now you can just press dynamic subdivision, and let's say if you want to add crease in this polygroup, you can do that by pressing geometry and then open up the crease and crease polygroup as I explained before. So that's all about the technical basic in ZBrush. I'll show more while we're working on the actual model. So in the next class, we will do some preparation before we working on the character. See you in the next class.